Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank everybody for tuning in live or listening to replay. Always appreciate the live listeners or the people that listen in the replays. Always appreciate it. Never can never, you know, overly thank everyone for listening to replay. All the contacts, everyone that reaches out to us via email and contacts us, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com for consultations. Just reaching out and looking at, when people say go private, they can really, make sure that they're moving, in that right position. And the vault always has aided people in that position. Comes from a community perspective. Always have the general business conversations. You don't need to be lawyers. You can have the general business conversation of different matters, speaking on matters that you are interested in, especially when you have a lot of small business entrepreneurs. The reason why they're small business because they're under 5 million in revenue, and so when we look at the once again the revenues and things of that nature. There's so many entrepreneurs that are under the 5 million bracket and they don't have knowledge of operating agreements and things of that nature. So we always wanted to talk about that type of stuff. So this is episode 194, private bank and trust. Once again, this is the vault episode 194, private bank and trust, and just wanted to really do an episode that was catered towards people being aware of the matters of what a lot of trustees run into when they deal with private bank and trust. And a lot of times, a lot of them want to go into what would be considered smaller banks. A lot of newer trustees want to go into smaller banks, but in all actuality, a lot of the private banks are not big. They're not commercial. They're not traditional investment banks. They're not really your traditional bank that you're just going to walk into. A lot of the private banks are appointment only. They have appointments. You go in. They have food there for you. They have a banker there for you. And so traditionally, a lot of times you see a lot of bankers at that level that are doing meetings. Traditionally doing meetings because you're above even a $250,000 level. So you get a lot of private banking that's done with people that are in the $250,000 range, but we still get a lot of trustees that we know that deal with private banks and they don't have, a $250,000 in revenue or $250,000 sitting in their bank account, and they're still able to grow from that private position, even from an under $250,000 standpoint. And so, we get a lot of people at the vault that say, oh, does the vault really know its audience? And the vault definitely has its pulse on the audience, especially everyone that reaches out via consultation. Everyone that's reached out through consultations over the years, there's been a pulse on the business community. There's been a pulse on the going private sector. There's been a pulse on private banking trust. And so this episode is to really talk about the ones that are still from zero to $250,000 that haven't walked into the true private wealth sector. But then you get a lot of people that are under that, and they're still looking to maintain their privacy all the way through and through. And so we wanted to talk about that on this particular episode because that is the case. So many people have their pulse on um, wanting to go private, and they're saying, well, what about bank accounts? How do these bank account things work? That's where we say reach out to the vault via email consultation. Why? Because it's dealing with privacy. If you're looking to ensure your privacy, you're always looking to do that in a private capacity, not on the public forum. And we always that's why we've never advertised who we work with at the vault, just because of what it's no need to advertise. Why? Because people come for one reason, they look to go private, and that's a very important purpose. And then when we talk about private trust, once again, people are looking to go private because they want to go private, not to be in a position where they want to be advertised as a client that, oh, I'm a multimillionaire and look at me. Can you share how many people are actually can share my information with other people? No one wants that. So private banking trust is one of those things of an international concern, because wanted to address this very early on. We got so many trustees that they don't really know, or a lot of people that come into the private banking trust, and they don't really know how international matters work, particularly when you're dealing with citizenship and you're traveling from one particular jurisdiction to the next. People are not aware of that right now heavily. They are very much so in their central jurisdiction, dealing with central banks in their jurisdiction, and that's particularly particularly can be defeating when people say, "Oh, I'm looking to go private." When you say, "Oh, you're looking to go private," you're looking to go into the foreign jurisdictions of Liechtenstein. You're looking to go into the foreign jurisdictions of people who still classically try to go into the Caymans. It's like, how is the Caymans still to this day still one of the most the Caymans is still has the most registered yachts in any country in the world. You know, these are things that you see certain elements of wealth building, wealth preservation, particularly when you talk about private. If you're talking about private, you're talking about wealth preservation. So when you say wealth preservation, when you're talking about that, why are certain people set up in certain jurisdictions? And so when we talk about those certain jurisdictions, we can talk about that in the banking aspect of, so many trustees now are dealing with the trading, and they're like, oh, we're looking to do that internationally. Well, if you do that internationally, that's the private sector. It's not just, oh, the public is synonymous with domestic. International is private. And so when we talk about, oh, we're going private, that means you're going international. How many people are willing to go get on the flight and go international and try to get into these other countries and do business? That is a very important concern that a lot of people have, even when it comes to even traveling abroad. They say, how do we travel abroad when we're dealing in private banking trust as a fiduciary? These are very important questions that we address at the vault through consultations. Why? Because that's what people are looking for. They're looking to say, hey, look, I got a business. I know that I'm international, and I'm actually doing business over the internet. Those are things that they want to have protected. Their international protection rights for copyright, trademark, business, intellectual property rights, once again, all of those different things. That's what people come to the vault for. When they say private banking trust, that's what they're looking of interest is to protect international property rights and trust. They're looking to do international banking. They're looking to separate their when people talk about, oh, I'm separating my straw man. Well, that's private banking trust. If you're separating your straw man, if you're separating yourself from the so-called corporation, it's private banking trust. See, we could easily go into an episode where supposedly privacy is under attack. Supposedly private banking trust is under attack. You don't lie to yourself. You want to know how you know private banking trust is not under attack? Go look at the private sector. Money is alive and well. Capital is sitting alive and well in the private sector right now. Private sector holds wealth. The public sector holds debt. Oh, what about the public sector? Doesn't it hold credit? Yes, it does. It holds two things that really, if you only had one, you didn't need the other. But really, they both play off each other, and that's not a bad thing. That can be a good thing. People come to the vault all the time. They say, well, what about in the private? I want to issue this bond and I want to do this and do that. Is there a stock exchange on the private? Is there an exchange on the private? People come all the time. I'm trying to put this derivative together. I'm trying to put this security together. I got this security agreement, and I'm trying to get somebody I'm trying to get the bank to give me some money so I can get a derivative and get it liquidated. It doesn't work that way. First of all, you have to get it classified as a security. Options are securities. Stocks are securities. These you get it has to be a security. So they say, okay, that whether they knew it or not, all they needed to know was they own the goddamn security. What is it? A creditor and a debtor document. That's a security document. It's a contract. But oh no, no. How many of them know that? The guy sitting on the internet parroting, oh, go ahead, deal with the UCC. It's the contract. It's the freedom contract. How? We're talking private banking trust. Private banking trust is contract. So we're talking about the UCC. Oh no, we shouldn't talk about this. This is the spooky thing. This is the day information. This is the private banking trust information. That's what it is. So if you look at it from the private banking trust situation, now you can look at the situation and say, oh, okay, well, this is business. It's not personal. But people are looking at it, oh, this is my freedom document. I'm gonna put a security over the straw man. I'm gonna put a security over the corporation. Sure you are. How can the natural ever be in the public? It's not. That's why they have artificial entities in the public. And what does the private have? Private banking trust. That's what they have. Why? The bank is what? It's your currency. The bank has a currency. They issue different currencies. You have different currencies. That's called talents. You issue your talents to create a bank because you're the bank. Most people don't know that they're the bank. But guess what? They give up their banking rights and then they go to a traditional public bank. So now they're insured with some Federal Reserve notes for $250,000. Insured. That's public banking trust. It's not private banking trust. Private banking trust, people say, what about insurance? Is it on the private side? Sure is. Lloyd's of London have been around for over 200 years. Insurance is private banking trust. Why do you think that's the second step in the four steps? Why? Because you have to preserve it. You already protected it. Now we're doing what? We're walking into the banking situation. A lot of people consider the banking situation the insurance. A lot of people are dealing with the insurance as trustees because at the end of the day, most people have to have insurance for so much in life. Insurance is almost a hedge against tax, but it's definitely a great tool that some people would say is not necessary. But in private banking trust, it's still not necessary, but it's still a great tool. You'll come into the private wealth environments and you'll see that insurance is a major component of private banking trust. You see a lot of the banks that are issuing debt, they're doing corporate owned life insurance. They are doing bank owned life insurance. So banks are buying corporate owned life insurance and buying as well bank owned life insurance. So you see those packages happening right now, and have been happening for years. When you look at private banking trust, but let's get down to the nitty gritty for the trustees that are looking to walk in. We know who our audience is. And they're coming to say, okay, private banking trust, how does this work in my life? It works the same way it's working right now. The only difference is own nothing, control everything. You got to put yourself in the correct position. If you're not in the proper position, then the proper profits aren't going to precede the proper structure. You have to have the proper structure in order to have the proper profits. Why are all the banks, why are all the insurance companies set up inside of a trust fund? Because they're contracts. We're very familiar with how these institutions are created. They're created through, some people say, recently we were talking to some mentors and they were like, oh, we'll set up on a mandate. Well, we're aware of that. We're aware of the country. We started the Constitution, which is a trust contract. It still deals with the mandate. They have a Declaration of Independence. They have a Bill of Rights. They have a Constitution. They have articles. It's a business document. Private banking trust means you operate off that document. That was the first contract in the country, it's been amended. We're all aware of the amendments to the Constitution, but not only is there amendments to the federal Constitution, then you have your different states. So then we get into even more private banking trust because the states have their own banking laws for the laws we're dealing with that. And that's awesome. People should be very excited about that because obviously when you deal with the so-called public, and when the public's giving stimulus, who are they giving it to? Are they giving it to the banks? They give it to the business and the people, or are they giving it to the people and the businesses? No, they're giving it to the banks because they're in trust, they're in contract, they're in a position where we already know. That's why you can see people saying that they can get a $40 million bonus, $100 million bonus, and that's the board's decision. It's private banking trust. It's the board's decision. It's not your decision. It's the board's decision. Even when the company's going bankrupt, you still getting bonuses. That's the board's decision. See, people who aren't in the proper structure. So how can it precede the profit? How do you think Bezos is going to be a trillionaire? Because he has the proper structure. You think you get there off of not having a proper structure? Bezos deals with private banking trust. We already know that. You already know that. People are trying to sue him left and right. Oh, he threw water on me. I'm suing him. $50,000. It doesn't work that way. But somebody's doing it. They're filing it. Oh man, he didn't hold the door open for me when he was coming out of the Starbucks. Okay. This is what people try to sue you for. Oh wow, he pulled out in front of me and I got really scared. I'm scared now because Jeff Bezos, the billionaire. We people make these allegations up. That's what people do. So he's in private banking trust. You don't become that way if you don't have that in place. But he does have that in place. And if you're ever looking to amount any type of wealth like Bezos or any of the giants that are around, these are giants. You're in private banking trust. Everybody in politics. Oh no, my favorite politician's politician? Well, first of all, how are they holding a position of oath and they still have public interest? Remember, or do they have private interest? How can you have private interest and be in the public and be a public servant? That means you're holding two positions. Because now, are you passing laws in favors of your company? This is what is being touted in these public environments, anyways. Is there a crosshair, a cross correlation between the gov and private sector? Is there a crosshair? Is there intervention on either side? Is the private buying out the public, or is the public secretly, regulating the private? Which one came first? That's what we remind you of as an audience. Which one came first, the public or the private? The private did, because it's the contract. The Constitution created them to be able to create these erroneous laws or penal codes that talk about, if you say certain things, they can be regulated. Exactly. And now let's go ahead and talk about it. We're gonna talk about it tonight. So people are on the internet saying, "Well, they took down my favorite YouTuber." They took them down off the internet because they were speaking the truth too much. They're regulating it like they're doing restriction of freedom of speech. How? You're on their platform. You want to know how you're in a private banking trust situation when you're on anyone's platform? Because you signed a private contract. It's called the terms and agreement. It's called the agreement policy, the privacy policy, the community guidelines. The community guidelines are the banking trust. This is where they're able to get their wealth from. This is how they're able to steal your content. But is it really stealing? No, it's private banking trust. They are a depository. Why? Because you go on and you volunteer information. See, there should be no, oh, it's an attack on privacy. No, it's a volunteering of public information. These public platforms are great to share public information. But how is there an attack on private banking trust? No one in the chat right now has said, oh, they had a hard time dealing with the private banking trust. Why? Because there is no problem. The only problem is the trustees or a particular individual doesn't want to be abreast of trusteeship. Because even as a banker, aren't they fiduciaries? What is a trustee? A fiduciary. So you have to know fiduciary law. That's probably the most important thing. And so many people don't know fiduciary law. They don't know what corporate law is. People come to the vault all the time. They don't know what corporate governance is, especially on the public side. Corporate governance is huge right now on the internet. Corporate governance is huge right now in the marketplace. So many people think that these corporations are getting over on people. Oh, the corporations are taking advantage of people. No, they're not. They're taking advantage of private banking trust. They're getting bailed out every single day. They're either getting bailed out by stimulus right now, through public subsidies, or they're getting bailed out through a private VC. Who you think is going to let Disney go out of business? You think someone's going to let Disney go out of business? Never. That company, they will always have a private equity holder sitting around, private banking, institutional bank, private hedge fund holder, private billionaire that will buy that company. Just like billionaires buy basketball and football teams. They buy these things because it's a depository of wealth. Think about it. Do the football owners own the stadiums that their teams play in? No, because it's private banking trust. These are private institutions, private organizations. Well, what do you mean? I thought they were playing in a public environment. They are. That's why it's actually free. But who ends up paying? The consumer, the public individual that wants to go watch a public display of public entertainment. It's not private, it's public. It's regulated. There's subsidies in the public. Private banking trust. People come to us all the time. Oh, I got this. We got a UCC on my birth certificate. You got a UCC on your birth certificate. Okay. And what does that do? Well, I know this is the banking. I'm the creditor, so I'm looking to cash out. Just like right now, supposedly the government owes people money. Supposedly, private banking trust says the government doesn't owe us anything. Why? Because we didn't sign a contract with them. We reserve our rights. Who? The who? The so-called leaders? The servants. I no, hold on. The so-called leaders. No, the servants. Hold on. I'm gonna say it again. The so-called leaders, the servants. They're servants. Private banking trust. Who you serving? See, in private banking trust, it's the family. It's the family first. See, we know that. It's bloodlines first. This message is only for the ones that care about their family. While everybody wants to care about the public, called socialism, what happened to your family? Is your family surviving and thriving? Or they're sinking and not swimming? And private banking trust puts a family back at the table to say, we got to live by our contract. What are we supposed to do? What are our monthly expenses? You know how many American families don't know their income to expense ratio? Every single month, every single week, every single day. That's too much to ask. Why? They haven't been taught checkbook balancing. Did you learn that in public school? No, you learn that in the private sector though. Why? Because it's private banking trust. That's all it is. It's contracts. What about the public sector? Oh no, the public sector is we have the banker set up the bank account. We have the banker do everything. He knows everything. We go get a financial advisor. He's got to be licensed to tell me everything. Right. And then he ends up losing 30% of the portfolio. But guess what? The S&P doesn't lose this much, right? So we're always going to make up our difference in S&P. You hear all of these same public terms and what do they call them? Aphorisms. But how many people in the public are thriving? How many people are just surviving? But what happened in the private? You say, well, what about the private? Are there poor people in the private? How can you be poor in the private? Is private own nothing control everything, or is it poor? It's not. So so many people would say this is the infamous question. People coming to vote. People ask me in person, who needs a trust? This is the main question. Who needs a trust? Anyone that is not destitute. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a banking restructuring going on in the world right now. We are actually looking at some news the other day on Bloomberg about India and how India is still dealing with their credit crunch that they had in place about a year or two ago, where they literally took out bills out of circulation. Think about if you're in America or whatever country you're in, and they took out the equivalent of the fives and the tens. So you have the ones, now you have the 20s, the 50s, and the hundreds. They took dollar bills out the money because out of the money circulation supply. You can go research this, and they did it because they said it was black money in the market. It was black market money. They're trying to catch people for people using this form of shiftery, where people shift and they shift away assets so they don't have to own anything, control everything. That's what they're doing. They're looking at that. What do you think they're looking at in the United States? What do you think they're looking all around the world? So how do you operate with the gurus on the internet if they're not telling you how to operate internationally? See, that's what we focused on. We focused on the mentors that told us, hey, look, if you walk into a bank internationally as an American citizen, you might have a hard time walking in. Well, what do you mean? Well, guess what? When you're walking in as a citizen of the United States, they want to know some things about you now. It's not the old gunslinger days where people could just go straight over to a what people consider a European tax haven. Laws have changed. You all are aware of this. They have new organizations and new acts in place now. So how is privacy not under attack? That could be a question. How is it not under attack? We want to know why? Because the leader's still using it. You don't need to ask how the privacy not how it's under attack. The leader using it. It's not going anywhere. The public's changing. That's the only thing that's changing is the public. Are you serious? The public is the only thing that's changing? Private banking trust is not? No. Look at it. The same countries that were classified as tax havens are still that. They didn't change. Those were propaganda ads ran against it for a period of time, for a legislative campaign to pass an act, to get the dummies, to get people that don't want to go into those jurisdictions anymore and get the proper advisory council. Hold on. What do you mean? Hold on. Advisory council? I thought I could Google it, because I can Google everything. Google it. Are you serious? Ladies and gentlemen, we've invested in one event over $3,500. It might sound like, oh man, that's a lot of money. Ladies and gentlemen, we know events that cost more. But for the low end, under $250,000 investor, if you're belly aching about a $3,500 event that's 3 days, literally 8 hours a day, or 6 hours minimum, with a private international banker that's been in different jurisdictions and that is very aware of the credit environment right now, what would you do to give that up? $3,500. For some people in America, that could be one paycheck. That could be a month's paycheck. For some people, that may not be. At the end of the day, that's what it costs to be the boss. You have to get the information. See, we live in the information age. That's why you listen on YouTube, so you can get the information. But once you get part of the information, you have to get all of the information. You have to invest. And you're not investing in the guy you're buying the information from or the lady you're buying the information from. You're investing in your education to know, okay, I didn't leave any stone unturned. That's the private education. Why? Because it is where people say, oh, I don't believe in competition. It's highly competitive on the private sector. Why? Because they're looking to create a higher standard of living. Higher standards of living come from the private sector. That's where luxury is at. That's where wealth is at. The public sector is a reflection of the private wealth that's being created. When you look at all of these public companies that you think are public, but then when you see, oh man, Google's held in Alphabet A and Alphabet B and Alphabet C. What? Hold on, they got three different trusts owning these goddamn companies out here. Well, which one's the real Google? Hold on, which one's the real Alphabet? I mean, I don't know. Right. This is where private banking trust comes into play. Now, people see that they were lacking on their financial education. Really? So we went through the public school. Many went through college. And you're telling me now we don't have a proper financial education? Okay, many of us know that, but some might live on the river of denial. But some say, okay, I want a better one. There's some people say, I don't have a bad one. I've saved money. I've saved 50,000. I've saved 100,000. Some people maybe have not saved that. Some people say, okay, I got a good credit score. Some people may say that they don't have a good credit score. How come the world of finance is so abstract? You want to know why finance is so abstract? Because it's private. You want to know why it's abstract? Because it deals with concepts. It doesn't deal with propaganda. Propaganda is on the public side. It's to confuse you. It's a control mechanism. It's to make you think that banking sucks. It's to make you think that you're not a bank. See, in the private sector, we know that we're the bank. We know that we're the currency. See, that's the spiritual talk. See, that's the private sector. See, in the public sector, they want to get rid of God. In the public sector, they want to get rid of spirit. No need to talk about the spiritual effects of business and money and banking and trust and contracts. But the private side, that's what it's about. It's about protecting your freedoms. Your freedom to worship, your freedom to speech, your freedom to do those things, your freedom of mobility. People come to us all the time. Oh man, I'm trying to, I could travel about the nation. I could travel around the world. And why do I need to check in with anybody? First of all, ladies and gentlemen, you're dealing with private banking trust. When you travel on the seas, everybody knows about mercantile law. Everybody wants to talk about this maritime law. Everybody wants to talk about the martial law. If you're talking about those things, then you're talking about a system, private banking trust. Why? Don't those things give you charges if you get a fee? If you do something wrong? Isn't there a penal charge? It's dealing with a contract. You have to be offer something in order to accept that you're going to pay it. Private banking trust. People learn in the private sector not to contract as much anymore. They minimize the contracts. People try to call it minimum contacts. Minimum contacts deal with trying to minimize the minimum contracts. A lot of people are saying, hey, I just want to get out of the system. I don't want to be a part of it. Okay, so we say, okay, those are people out there. How do you deal with the private banking trust if you now not wanting to be in the public sector? The same way everybody else does. Do contracts. That's it. Oh man, we're okay. How is this knowledge so abstract? Because it's at the law library. People don't want to go to the law library. The only ones that go to the law library are the lawyers and the serious trustees. The serious trustees are at the law library. Oh no! All the trustees that suck, they didn't go to the law library. We promise you. You say, how statistically accurate that is. If they go to the law library even one time, their chances of succeeding in trusteeship are probably 50% higher than somebody that's never gone. So the ones that just went one time is 50% higher than the ones that never go. Why? Because they don't know where the local law library is, which is in their local county. Every place that's administering law has to have a law library to share with anyone that can read or write the law that they're being administered on. Oh, really? Yes. How many entrepreneurs know corporate governance and corporate law? Well, why do I need to know corporate law? I was just trying to start a business. We even hear entrepreneurs recently say this. Oh man, business entrepreneurs, there is the, why would they need to be cared about just starting a business? They need to be more focused on getting the business going and growing it and getting the money coming in. Yeah, and that's why they fail. They can't keep money in. You think Bezos is letting money out? That's why he's able to build money fast because he's not letting money out. You think Amazon's paying taxes? He's not letting money out. Oh no! That's what's really going on. I'm looking at this in front of my face. Yes, you're looking at it in front of your face. Every wealthy elite is doing this in front of your face. They're not losing money, losing it. Do you understand that makes them constipated? Losses are not good. And guess what? They better be winning more than they're losing. But losses aren't good on the path to building wealth. And that's what Bezos and everyone else is doing. Everyone now. Everyone is building wealth privately. They're doing their best, or you're in the public. It's that simple. And private banking trust deals with how you're holding it. It deals with the way that you're managing it. Are you member managed or manager managed? So many come to the vault and don't know the difference. Member managed and manager managed. That's something. How come your favorite lawyer's lawyer didn't tell you that? The ones that are on the internet, they got their podcasts, they like talking about business. How come they didn't talk to you about that? How come they don't tell you the gambit of contracts before you walk in and say, hey, I need an LLC, give me it, set it up for me? How come they just sell you that? How come they don't say, well, these are your options? It's not just two, it's not just three, it's not just four. Why not? Because they're on the public side. They're going off their public knowledge. So what are you saying, Trust Christian? I got to invest in my private education. How you do that? You get a consultation, Christian at trustchristian.com. You get and you move forward with, okay, I'm investing in my private education. Some people invest in their private education multiple consultations. Some people just move forward with trustee training. Some people, once again, just like you say, just get a consultation and move forward on their own. They just move forward. So many people. Why? Because we already know what the movement is. So many people say, oh, the private's gone down the toilet. Sure has. Once again, they're doing it right in front of your face. It's business as usual, ladies and gentlemen. But what about the private banking? You know, how do we get that established? 'Cause so many people contact the vault about the private banking situation with moving forward with insurance and things of that nature. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened to Cornell in the trading class? What happened to you all using your intellectual power, which is called intellectual property, which is actually something very valuable. Your brain is valuable, but your thoughts are valuable. So now, when it comes to the trading, it's intellectual property. That means you have to come up with a good thought, and then you have to make money off that thought. That's private banking. See, in private banking sector, now you have to generate ideas. And now that you generate these ideas have to make you money. They have to yield you a profit. That's private banking. Oh, really? Yeah. And you have a contract in place. Your family has a contract in place for you to grow the family wealth and the family assets. But how many people are willing to put a contract in place that's going to force them to study to only grow? No, no, no. See, we get people that come to the vault. So many losers. Let's share with you how the losers talk. This is the loser talk. Oh, hey, I'm going to go ahead and learn from my losses. Because that's how you learn in life. You learn better from your losses. That's a good aphorism, but it's not good in family situations when the money's on the line. See, the family's got to eat. So it's private family banking. It's private family trust. It's private family banking trust. You can't afford to lose money. Oh, well, what about losses? Do you ever not take a loss? Look, if your ratio is 70-30, let's go look at baseball. We were talking to a partner the other day about how in baseball you go to the Hall of Fame if you hit bat 300, which means out of 10 hits you hit 3 times. Every time you step up to the plate, you hit 3 times, you go to the Hall of Fame. Out of 10 times you hit it 3 times, you go to the Hall of Fame. That's not how it is in the private family banking trust though. And so people have been programmed on the public side for failure. On people on the public side, public banking have been taught. Look, you have been on the public side intentionally discouraged to save. How? Because the public banking side says, hey, we're not going to give you any interest for saving your money. What the hell? So you're serious? You're going to put your money in a bank that says we're not going to give you any interest for putting any money in the bank publicly. No, they're not. But what about the private sector? The private sector, hedge funds, institutions are kicking out 30% returns every year. They're kicking out 18% returns. They're kicking out returns like the S&P with minimum 7% growth every year. Think about if your money was earning 7%. Instead, in the traditional public banking side, what? It's earning 0.00. Or some people try to get 1%. What's 1% on $1 million? How can you live off that off a year? We're talking about interest dividend yielding. How many people are aware of dividends? How many people are aware of assets instead of just money? See, people think money's an asset. How is money an asset when the money that you're holding in your hand is depreciating every single day? That's a fact. Anyone in the chat can write into the chat right now and disagree and say that the money is not losing value, whether it's via inflation or the fact that it's losing value. Now, if people would like to argue and say, well, the money is gaining value across other currencies, it is. But we are into private banking trust. So we know and we're very aware of quantitative easing. We're aware of fractional reserve banking. Why? Because they're contracts, they're documents that you can read. That's private banking trust. That's where the documents came from. The private banking trust. That's how the bank is started. Through a contract. That's it. How many people think about starting a bank in their life? How many people are scared to start a bank in their life? You're supposed to start a bank. It helps out the state. Because now they have an institution that can lend out money to the public. That's why they're called credit unions. We're a big fan of those things. But how many people are going to have the guts to put together a credit union? Some people say they don't believe in the banking system, fractional reserve banking. That's fair. So in the private banking sector, there's still a form of accounting. So some people may use GAAP, generally accepting accounting principles. Even in the private sector, people still use generally accepting accounting principles. GAAP. People say, well, what's the accounting system we should be using? See, everybody wants to know the accounting system. That's the accounting system. Everybody's using GAAP. Everybody on the private side knows that. People on the public side, they don't even know what they're accounting using as far as an accounting system. People want to talk about accrual or cash method. Well, what about that? Private banking, man. Private uh, private banking trust is so critical because so many people Say, okay, we're going into this private trust situation now. If you're going into a private trust situation, immediately the trustees now are obligated to get a private education. What do you mean? How many people are think they gonna walk into the private and think you gonna go read a book on the internet still in the public? You think that there's banks you think that there's publications and private books and things of that nature that the vault circulates? Yes, it does. You think that these other institutions that are private that are not circulating private publications? Yes, they are. They're private educational publications. That's why when you start looking at these magazines nowadays, which is really interesting, that when you go look at a company like Business Insider, you can't just go read their post. You actually have to subscribe to their actual magazine. You have to subscribe. They're trying to make sure that their information is regulated privately, internally. They're trying to create community guidelines internally. What you see is already being regulated internally. So if the gov wants to come in, we already have protocols. Well, what about you selling people's information? Ooh, we're still getting into, are we dealing with private banking or private trust? Because, first of all, somebody has a likeness, once again, intellectual property. See, people forget about the hard, tangible property, but they want to talk about the intellectual property or the intangible property. People don't even want to know that there's laws for intangible property. How is your information in a cloud? The invisible cloud is intangible property that costs money. And guess what? There's big money going into data security right now. There's big money going into intellectual property rights right now. There's big money into intellectual property leasing right now. But oh no, no. Privacy, that's being under attack. No, it's not. Private banking, private banking trust is completely still going on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And so we want to continue talking about it in a manner in which is edifying to the listener that says, hey, are you aware of the positions that are in place right now in the marketplace to acquire great counsel? When we talk about international lawyers and we talk about international accounting, going to bigger accounting agencies nowadays, not going to your local, your guy that's a part of the local strip mall. Why? Because even though it might be small business under $5 million, it still warrants for a person to think like big business. Why? Once again, how do you think Bezos went from the picture that you can see on the internet where he has Amazon written on the wall and he has computers all over his office and he's sleeping in his office? Why? It's because he was able to put himself in a position where he partnered with the right team very early on, private banking trust, so he was able to acquire wealth rather quickly. See, this is what you can see. You can see trillionaires now born in your lifetime. You can even see them. You're going to see them come in their 20s now. Why? Because just like there's billionaires in their 20s now, you're going to see trillionaires in their 20s. Why? Because A, the money, the asset that you may think that you're holding, the money as an asset, is depreciating. You need more money. The same gallon of gas is not the same price it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. Why? The money's losing value. We know that. Private banking trust tells us, okay, well, we're in a position now where we're the money, we're the bank. That's why we're in the vault. And when it comes to international affairs, you're dealing with bigger accounting agencies now. You're okay with calling them. One of our mentors, always recommended that you get a lawyer that you can't afford and get a accountant that you can't afford. And you say, wow, why would I go do that? Because think about it. They're not taking you on as pro bono work, as sympathy vote. They're taking you on for what reason? Because they want to make money off of you and they obviously can see something in you. You want someone that has a level of vote of confidence in you. It's called it's called building up perception. So, private banking trust. People say, what about the social? See, so many people have gotten on the line and gotten off the line, but we know the ones that stayed on the line, for all you ones that stuck it out till we got to the social. Because this is where it gets iffy. This is where it gets tricky. This is where it gets sticky, icky. Oh man, how do I operate? And I'm trying to stop using the social. Private banking trust, no social. Well, guess what? How can you do business in a position where you're still trying to use the social? You're not. What do you mean? Do I use it or not? Ladies and gentlemen, this life, oh, is that real? You're making the sacrifices. Hold on, what do you mean I got to give it up? Do I give it up? If you have to give it up for private banking trust, are you willing to do that? See, that's the question that the mentors asked us when we asked them. That's what we looking to do. We didn't even ask. We told them that's what we looking to do. They looked at us. They looked us straight in the face. They said, "Well, that's what you're looking to do. Just know that that's what you're doing. You're giving up something. You're giving up the public benefits. Hoo, bite your fingers, bite your fingernails. We're giving up public benefits. Is that what I'm really giving up? I'm giving up my public freedom ticket. Hold on, the public poor people freedom ticket? Yeah, you're damn right I'm giving up the. That's what I want to give up. I want my freedom. I don't want the slave ticket. I want the freedom ticket. I don't want the slave number. I want the freedom number. Well, what's the freedom number? If you already know it's the EIN that operating as a business owner, as an entrepreneur investor, being the individual private bank and trust, then that's the way you're supposed to move. That's pretty obvious. Hold on. Well, why didn't I make that jump? Why don't so many make that jump? It's called fear. And they're programmed for the public sector. Remember, if you went through public school got you. It got you for 12 years. It's no competing against that. Unless you come out and you start investing in your private education and doing your best to really get private by truly putting your money where your mouth is, how you going to get it? You're in the public sector. You got the CPAs, that's called a certified public accountant. You got the public attorneys, they're public. So where are you getting the knowledge for the private sector? Why didn't you Google the private attorney yet? Where are the private accountants at? Where are they at? I tried to Google them. I didn't get a lot of information on them, man. A lot of these guys they're talking big money, man. I thought I was gonna get a free hour in the private. Is that not true? I thought I was getting an hour free. That's the lawyer's code, right? Hey, look, it's the private. It's based off contract. Work for hire. How many people know about work for hires? How many people talk to you about work for hires? Do the lawyers tell you should give them a work for hire? You're supposed to give the lawyer a work for hire. Oh no, did he just tell me something my lawyer never told me? And my lawyer, they never really told me that I was supposed to give them a work for hire because that gives them explicit details. Hold on, explicit? Explicit details. This is all I need you to do. This is all you're contracted to do. Oh, so my lawyer, I was supposed to give him a contract. Well, hold on. Your job, right? This is how it works when you hire someone. You pay them money. They don't pay you. See, there's a buyer and there's a seller. Which one are you? You're the purchaser of an asset, of someone's skills, someone's talents. That's the private sector, is contract. Independent contract. When everybody comes to the vault about uh, oh, I'm a truck driver, and I want to know how to make sure that the business is set up to make sure that the trucking company is under the LLC, because everybody want to do the LLC or they want to do the corporation. They got a couple trucks on the road. Okay, so you got your trucks on the road. Private sector, but how is that private if it got the LLC or the C corp? Because are you the owner? That's the question. But I still got to use, my social for licenses and things like that. There's a work for hire. See, we were doing our research recently on publication. This is so awesome when you do simple research on trademark and copyright. So, in particular with copyright, what's so interesting about copyright is that in copyright, the person that hired the author or the artist for the work is the actual author of the work. Once again, we'll repeat it. The actual employer of the work is the author of the work. You can go look that up. We don't want to quote it. We don't want to say, because everybody likes to quote things and try to attack people for quoting. But we're going to share with you. You can go to the copyright, USPTO, literally go look at the fact that the author is the employer. So it's a work for hire. So when it comes down to so-called, hey, I got to trust. If you got to trust, did the author of it, was it you, the work for hire, or was it the lawyer that drafted it? Hmm. Don't they try to put it on you in a living trust situation? You're the author of the document, the work for hire, the employer. You see how that goes? It's so slick. And we just want to say, hey, look, it's business as usual. Of course it is. The employer, work for hire. It's bank and trust. Private banking trust is contracts. It's independent contracts. So many people, even in the independent contractor with the Ubers, we done episodes with the Ubers. People do the independent contractors, even with the Airbnbs. Even people doing independent contractor with Amazon. Oh man, how can I practice the private banking trust and I don't have the trust? You got the LLC and C corp, own and control everything. Well, I would be the original owner. I'm the only owner on it. Guess what? The owner. Guess what? Taxes chase title. Why do you think so many guys like Bezos and them are going by the title founder? Hold on, it's that simple. So that's how simple it looks. That's how simple it looks. He's going by founder. Go look at his salary every year. Go look at Donald Trump's salary, not as a president, but in the private sector. These guys make $1 a year. Private banking trust, they getting $1 a year. What are you getting? Taxed to death. Private banking trust, that's what it looks like. It's business as usual, people. There's no way around it. It's good to get into the private banking trust information. Why? Because most people are dealing with money. If you're touching money, you got to get into private banking trust. Why? Because it deals with the fact of money. That's all it deals with. It deals with finance. I don't know how uh, uh, anybody can say we don't want to deal with finance. No matter what your life is, how do you want to deal with finance or commercial capital or capital in general, especially if you touch money? As soon as you started touching money, that's when we were supposed to be learning about banking and finance. So now we're in a position where we are forced to learn about banking and finance at any level, entrepreneur and or investor, employees as well, but always learn about banking and finance. Why? Because most people are, guess what? They're going through a bank. If you're going through a bank, it's banking and finance. It's bank and trust because the bank's held in trust. Some people, once again, we want to highlight those points. Oh, the social, man. How do I deal with this? And I don't want to deal with the social. Remember, if the social is the uh, welfare number that you're supposed to be using in the public to accept public welfare, then what does that have to do with the private family banking trust? Nothing. So what are you saying? I got to give it up? Once again, the mentors only asked us that question. They didn't say, well, give it up. Why? Because they already know. You know how many people want to squeal and wheel and get back in and get free benefits? The supposed free benefits? See, here's the conversations how we talk to the mentors on the private side. Hey, mentor, guess what? We know our family. We don't want to deal with the social. We want to give it up. Here goes the mentor. They're not going to ask you, are you sure you want to do that? Well, there's these are the outcomes that are going to come about you. These are some of the outcomes from people doing that. They say, oh, I know a guy that did that. They never tell us that they did it. Why? Because they did it. And they don't want you to know that they did. Why? Because they don't want you to make a hasty decision and give up your free benefits. Because they already know 90% of the population does not want to give up their free benefit number. Because this is what they say. The mentor will warn you, look, they're not going to scare you, they're going to prepare you. They'll tell you, guess what? You only get to do it once. What do you mean? You only get to go out one time. You don't get to come back in. What do you mean, mentor? We never asked that question. We already knew what was going on. Once you leave, you can't come back? No. Wow. How do I operate without it then? Don't worry. The organizations you need to contact, they're not going to bow down. They're not going to try to overwhelm me, try to ram you, railroad you, and try to say, oh, well, this is the way it is. What do you mean? You don't have one and you're still alive. Yeah, that's true. And guess what? That was the welfare number. What do you mean? That's the number for benefits. I read the card, I read the act. That's for benefits. I don't need the benefit number. The social insurance number. They call it SSI, right? That's the social insurance number. That's the social number for benefits. I don't need that. Okay, great, great, great. So how do you do business? Well, you go in, they'll know. Your identification will reflect that now. That's it. That's it. That what do you mean? But what am I losing? What is the sacrifice? The sacrifice is public benefits. Well, hold on. That's all I'm sacrificing is public benefits, the public food bank, the public free education. Hold on, the free education that made me think that I don't need that I can't live without the benefits. Yeah. All right, I'm done with that. I'm done with the public benefit number, and I don't need that. I don't because I want to practice the go private, the private bank and trust situation. Okay, great, great, great. So now that means that you operate without it and you guys move forward. And people are doing that all the time. It does become a lifestyle. We share with people as a lifestyle. You eat, sleep, live, and play. Private banking trust. Same thing Bezos is doing. Same thing everybody else that's moving forward in the same actual fashion and capacity is moving forward in private banking trust. There's no way around it. It's business as usual. They're looking to build their families' wealth. They understand that they're the bank because they've been taught those higher principles. They've been taught those spiritual principles, those spiritual laws. They understand that money can never be greater than them. First of all, the paper is depreciating. That already shows you it's a fluke. They got a thing called inflation. They got a thing called hyperinflation. They got a thing called deflation. They got all these different things. I'm not messing with none of that. It's a farce. It's a joke. And when I say that, we actually are encouraging you to go research those terms, actually. You should go research those terms. Because these are terms that are called eroding factors to wealth building, just like taxes are. They're eroding factors to wealth building. And so when we talk about private banking trust, those are that's the private sector. Some people actually ask us, well, is it true that there's dealing with no taxes in the private as opposed to the public? Well, what has the public done? What is the public sector presented? Why did the crypto get so hammered down by the law? They said it was unregulated. Clearly, there was money that was being transferred around through crypto that they said it was private money. Why? Because they couldn't track the contracts. They couldn't track the transactions. The transactions were privately protected via contracts, intellectual property contract laws, specifically the internet. When you look at crypto companies, they are purely set up off of intellectual property contracts, period. Whether they want to create a cyber law or not, I don't know how to what's the necessary need for that because those are still land laws. Those are land laws that they are still have laws for dealing with land corporations. That's why they try to tie corporations to land. They try to tie entities to land. So they are putting internet laws in place. They do have obviously internet laws in place. They're going to continue to put internet laws in place, cloud laws in place. They're going to put those laws in place because that's where things are going on. That's where we don't want to say theft or any of those things, but just once again, private banking is going on in those realms. Contracts, intellectual contracts are going on in those realms of crypto and things of that nature. And cloud contracts are going on. Same thing with the community guidelines with Facebook and YouTube and all these things. These are contracts that are in the cloud, so they're still developing actual law right now for this sector of industry, which is the internet. They're still developing internet laws as they go because they're looking at these internet companies such as Facebook and saying, are you guys actually throttling or are you guys regulating your channels? Are you guys regulating it or are you letting freedom of speech prevail? And so in turn, what do you mean are they letting freedom of speech prevail? How? You're on their community platform. You read the guidelines, it tells you whatever you put on the website is theirs from the beginning. How can you say, well, I want some type of intangible rights to this? You can't have intangible rights to something. And then I know this is being argued all the time in the business marketplace and specifically in legislative environment. Why? Because they want to say, well, how was that the case? So then they say, well, should they put age restrictions on these websites because people that are so-called of not sound mind, if they do volunteer information, they shouldn't have their information circulated without their permission, and it shouldn't be taken without their sound mind permission. Well, it's like, well, what about the adults that are saying anything? They're not of sound mind? No, it's that simple. They're not. And that's why the gov is there trying to say, well, we already know that the general population is almost not smart enough to actually read the contract that Facebook has or Google has for their terms and privacy agreement or their community guidelines. People aren't really going to read that. So we're going to step in and we're going to try to get these companies to open up their books. We're going to try to get these companies to share with us their community guidelines. We're going to actually try to regulate these companies, and we're going to put the rules in place for them to not regulate or have community guidelines, or we're going to regulate partially, go into the private sector because these are private enterprises. Facebook was a private enterprise, and these are companies that are private. A lot of the companies are private. Google is private, private banking trust. They're privately funded. So they did their best to maintain their privacy, but when you see that these private companies now have developed technologies very well, and they've developed facial recognition technology. Well, if the government doesn't have any money to invest in that, well, guess what? We just got a company that did that. Let's go ahead and subcontract out with them right now because they actually have the tools that we need to develop our military power now. Simple as that. What? Really? That's how it works? Private banking trust means the private sector, the private enterprisers, you, your family, private enterprisers go out and create a product or service, and then you sell it to the government, and then maybe you don't sell it to the government. You keep selling it to the general pop, but either way, you can sell it to the gov or the general pop. You see what a lot of these big Fortune 500s do. Why? Because there's so much money in the government. Think about it. Where's the money going right now? The money's going to the companies that are essentials, that have relationships with the government. Oh wow, guess what? We're gonna change our manufacturing facilities over to create what the government just gave a subsidy for. Really? Hold on, a subsidy? That's called a tax write-off. Oh man, are you serious? So the billionaires? Oh no, the guy that had a multi-billion-dollar company, Bezos, he was private banking trust already. He hasn't paid anything because he's in it. He's doing it properly. Hold on. That's how it looks. That's how it looks. What about me? I'm the little guy. Some people they contact the vault. They're bragging about being a little guy. We don't understand how you brag about being little in life about anything, but people brag about being a little guy. Oh, I'm the little guy. What about us little people? How does that help us out? Well, ladies and gentlemen, Bezos, last time we checked, is first generation billionaire going on trillionaire. Even if his family was millionaires, he's first generation billionaire trillionaire. This is what happens. You build it. And some people sell their products to the government, and some people they continue doing private enterprise. And so we just appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. We got everybody that typed into the chat. Uh, everybody that typed into the chat. We see all your names and just appreciate you all. If you all have any questions or comments about today's episode, feel free to reach out. But we definitely want to talk about private banking trust, what it really looks like, um, and how you can move forward in your life. A lot of trustees, a lot of people sometimes they come through and they don't want to hear that they got to give up certain social benefits. Why? Because they're on the public side. They're called social for a reason. Public. And people don't really want to give up those things, ladies and gentlemen. They don't want to say, "Oh man, what do you mean? I got to give up the benefits that I paid the system into." This is what we just talked to our mentor to within the past week, and when they reminded us about it, yes, that's what you are doing. You are giving up your social benefit factor. Can you give that up? Are you ready to be naked in the wilderness called Earth, or do you need the social elite to come together to give you less than what they would ever give themselves? They would rather die than be given a handout. Really? Yeah. They did. They would. I mean, they can't stand being poor. Like they're why do you think they do whatever they can to put the poor in a position to keep them that way? You think some people say, "Oh, poor is a dirty word," or "We don't want to talk about their word, poor." Private banking trust. How are you talking about poor and private banking trust? Ladies and gentlemen, that is a real part of society. People make money off of housing homeless people. Literally. Do you want us to repeat that? So when we talk about charity, people say, "Oh, well, why would I start a business? If I go start a home, why could you could start a home for a veteran to stay in and make money off it? You could start a home for a homeless person to stay in and make money off it. You could start a home where they have what are those things? Special needs homes and make money off it. Really? Yes, that's in-home healthcare. Healthcare is booming right now. You know how many autistic people need middle housing or they call it assisted living? Oh no, did we just let the cat out the head of industry? One that's booming right now in the private sector? Why? Because hey, you know how many people are living on their last social security check? And guess who they're paying? They're paying that person that's allowing them to live in their property with a social security check. And the government's giving them money for that. Section 8, all type of stuff. Oh wow, is that easy? It's that easy. That's what's going on right now. Private banking trust. And so many people think that they could wait. When we heard about the banking trust, private banking trust, there was no waiting. Why? Because information is at critical mass on the internet. Information supposedly is being regulated. The private is being regulated. If your so-called favorites YouTuber or your favorite Instagram liver is literally being regulated on the content. If they're your favorite person that's on Twitter is being regulated by the platforms that already should let you know. Yes, you definitely have to invest in the private immediately. Why? Because the public's already locking down. The public is regulating more and more every single day. So they are going to eliminate they are going to eliminate private in the public sector. It's going to be even more regulated by the public. You're not going to need to see it anymore. Why? Because the public's got your back. The public's going to protect you. We're going to make sure that you're not going to see any. We're going to make sure we know what you're seeing. We're not going to tell you what you have to see. We're going to make sure we know what you are seeing. Oh, is that called surveillance? No, that's called we just wanted to know what you were seeing. Ladies and gentlemen, we understand it in the private sector that you may be giving up public things. Yeah, that's what you're doing. Trust Christian, it can't be that extreme. This is why the mentors told us to quit because people aren't ready to go private. They're gonna come to the private and say, "Oh wow, I have to get rid of all of my public stuff. I can't watch the public news media anymore." Why? Because it's not true. It's fake news. What? Hold on. What do you mean it's fake news? We're in 2020 and it's fake news? Look, ladies and gentlemen, you've known about fake news since 2016. You known about fake news since 2012. It's been fake news on the internet and since news has been around. Hold on. So what's real? Look, you have to do scavenger finding. That's the purpose of the internet. It allows you to look at all these alternative sources of data and information. That's it. Why? Because public school didn't get the job done. If public school got the job done, we all be goddamn millionaires and billionaires. That's the goddamn facts. I don't know how anybody could miss that. What do you mean? If you're going through a system that's supposed to be successful, then we all gonna be successful. But no, there's called statistics, and the statistics show it produces a 90% failure rate. Hold on. Public school or college? Which one? Public school. The dropout rate is rising every year. 1 million people in the states drop out every year. Plus, and you ain't a millionaire or billionaire because you went to college. So, because it's a private banking trust environment now, because you have to learn private information, investing in private education. Yes. Oh, You gonna come out your pocket and be like, damn, this is the most expensive thing ever. Why? Because in the public, you can get a subsidy for it. In the public, you can get a loan for it. In the private, it's got to come out the private family's creativity bank account. It's got to come out your private emotional bank account. What are you passionate about? What are you emotional about? What is God giving you to share with the world? It got to be something. If you don't have anything to share, you're not in private banking trust. But if you got something to share, you got private banking trust. Why? Because you got an asset to protect. That's why people put insurance on themselves. Because if something happens to them, there's a contract in place. That's a trust contract with an insurance company to make sure that if they go down, their family can still eat. That's called private banking trust. People talk about insurance, insurance, insurance. On the public side, that's how private banking insurance look like. That's how insurance looks like on the private side. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live or listening to replay. Always appreciate you all. Trustees that come through. Christian that trust Christian, feel free to reach out. We really wanted to talk about so much in this episode, even with the trading. We didn't even get to talk about the trading as much, man. Just highlighting the trading about, how to trade and puts you in a position to be in a bank. Think about it. You're a trader. That means you're literally the same person that's at the bank trading everybody's money. That's literally not earning any goddamn interest. That's literally earning 0.001 interest. You give it to the banker. The banker gives it to the trader that's at the bank and sitting on the trade desk and literally trading for the bank. The same goddamn trades that the traders that Cornell's trading class has taught people. And people are sitting here saying, well, I don't know if I'm going to get my life together. What? So you just learn how to be the guy that you're giving your money and not earning any interest with. So you're tacitly okay with losing. That's what most people are. They're okay with failure. This is what people come to the vault and say. Well, I'm not making that much money. Well, I didn't pay that much in taxes because I didn't make that much money. How is that good for you? The private sector is all about assets under management. Are you growing assets? Do you have $1 billion $1 bills? Do you have $1 million $1 bills? Have you saved $1,000 bills? Do you even have $50,000 bills under assets under management? These are critical questions to ask ourselves as trustees or asset managers. Why? Because the name of the game is asset manager. AUM. Some people say, when are you going to come out of the shadows, Trust Christian? When are you going to come out? When we hit the billionaire mark, assets under management. That's when we'll come out. Until then, it's no need to show face. Why? Because we're working on what everyone else should be working on: private banking trust. It's not about being the latest, greatest internet guru and hero. It's not about that. The next internet publicist. Why? You're not going to get all your information in the private banking trust in one information. Why? Because the trustee, the senior mentors will let us know the information is, you gotta think globally. You got to use the internet resources. You have to think globally. You have to subscribe to those private publications, such as a Business Insider, those type of publications. Economist, Bloomberg. You got to invest in those publications. That's what they tell us. You got to invest in wealth publications so you can know where to go to the private banks at internationally, where to go take a vacation to, instead of taking it to go see your cousin. You actually go take a investment for your family's future internationally. And you make sure that you can operate internationally with ease. How did the public school educate people to think domestically and only work on the public sector? Where if you're going private, that means you're going international. So what are you saying, Trust Christian? Are you seriously telling me I don't have an international education as an American? So you're trying to tell yourself, as an American, you don't have, how you going to have the best education, don't even have an international banking or international banking trust situation, education? How you can say you have an international education? You're supposed to have the best education, and you can't operate internationally in a global market right now with ease. Not going in talking about, oh man, I don't know where to go. I guess I'm gonna go to the embassy. What? People don't know how to do prerequisite research on emerging markets or additional markets. Private banking trust, it shows you that you have to look into different markets. People say, "Oh, I want to trade. I want to deal with the private banking," but they don't want to look into private international currency markets or look into currency markets. They're not even aware of the. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. If you live in the United States and you don't know what your country's GDP is, people should be ashamed of themselves. In private banking trust, you know what the GDP is of the country at all times. Why? Because that's your livelihood. Those are some fake numbers. I don't believe this stuff. Okay, we're not talking to those people. We're talking about the ones that are doing business with the banking and trust sector, whether it's public or private. The GDP affects numbers. It affects numbers. Man, I got to know that number at all times. It's highly recommended at all times. Knowing what the national debt is, knowing what certain type of national debt is available or not available. That's what's going on now. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you all for tuning in live or listening to replay. I always like doing these episodes for the trustees. We're going to definitely bring some more power packed episodes. Want to do some stuff about the two keys, the two middle keys of wealth, sometimes that are often neglected. But we definitely want to talk about those things, and we are going to talk about those things. And we're going to continue to talk about those things because even right now, with this dark cloud over the world, and so supposed turbulent times. Everybody wants to throw around all these financial terms, volatility, uncertain. Everybody wants to use these terms, and these terms are financial terms. These are terms that are in private banking trust. We like these terms. We like volatility. We like uncertainty. We like opportunity. But no, no, no. We like crisis. But oh no, no. These words are being thrown out there as the red word, not the blue word, the red word. They're the stop, don't do anything words. Oh, there's a crisis. What do you do in a crisis? How do you overcome a crisis? It's really easy. You were prepared for it. Ladies and gentlemen, people are literally selling prime real estate right now. You want to know what they call that? Off market real estate. That's the private sector. They're trying to get out of deals quick. Ladies and gentlemen, in the private sector right now, we are acquiring real estate that has 100% occupancy because the owner needs to get up out of debt. Once again, acquiring 100% occupancy real estate, multi unit properties because the owner needs to get out of debt. The private sector is alive and well, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you all for tuning in live or listening to replay. Feel free to join us, Christian at trustchristian.com.